Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. Who doesn't like a good heavyweight rumble? Well, if you do, and I think you do because you're a boxing fan, go and have a look at a fight that took place. It's on YouTube. It's on TalkSport Boxing's channel. And it's between Sergey Kuzmin and Murad Khalidov. All right. Now, this was an 8-rounder. But you saw more action in the 7 rounds that it lasted than you'll see in most heavyweight fights, most heavyweight trilogies. Well, you know what I'm saying. It was action packed. It was a slugfest from start to finish. An incredible war with both guys standing in front of each other and just letting the bombs go. And it was a battle of wills. There wasn't much scientific about it. Although there was some thought going into what was happening. Neither of these guys was a slickster. It's an interesting little backstory because you may well know Sergey Kuzmin. You may know of him. He's now 30, I think he's 38, something like that, late 30s anyway. And he came in with a 19 wins, 14 KOs record, 2 defeats back-to-back to Michael Hunter and Martin Bakole. But at one point, at 6'4", he's a Russian fighter. He was being hailed as possibly a real top 10 contender. He actually beat David Price back in 2018. Stopped him in 4 rounds. I think Price he had a dodgy shoulder and took the fight with the injury just for the paycheck or something. And retired on his stool after 4 rounds. I think he sort of rescued that particular fight for Matchroom. I remember Eddie Hearn talking about it, but that was back in 2018. And since then, like I say, he was undefeated at the time. He lost to Hunter. He did lose that fight over 12, unanimous decision. The fight to Bakole, which was in 2020, was a 10-round unanimous decision. And I absolutely believe that Kuzmin won that fight. I thought it was a bad decision. And since then, he's done very, very little. He fought once in 2021, twice in 2022, once in 23, and didn't fight at all in 24. So you could say, a bit inactive, wasn't he? But let's look at the opponent, Murad Khalidov, all right? Another one in his late 30s. But get a load of this, right? This guy had not fought in a boxing ring for over 11 and a half years. And he goes in with Kuzmin. Now, he had been fighting bare knuckle from what I've read, all right? But you would think a guy who's been inactive for over 11 and a half years... this fella turned pro, by the way, in 2008. So, God almighty. He's beaten absolutely no one at all. His last fight, which was in 2014, was against a guy with a 1-26 defeats and 1 record. 1 win, 26 defeats, 1 draw. And then, by the way, that was in 2014. His previous fight was back in 2010. So he came into this fight with Kuzmin. Essentially, he'd had 1 fight against a guy, a journeyman, a knockover job, in 15 years. So who do you think was going to win this one then? Well, even though Kuzmin himself had been inactive for something like 2 years, you would have thought, he can win this. He's a good fighter, Kuzmin. He was at one point a big prospect. But sadly, not anymore. Because this incredible war resulted in the hugely inactive Murad Khalidov, who was at the time 10-0. I mean, he's now got 11 wins with 6 KOs, no draws, no defeats. He knocked out Kuzmin in the 7th round of this 8-rounder, and it was an incredible fight. Now, both guys essentially just stood in front of each other, swapping bombs, all right, and throwing lots of punches for heavyweights, lots of punches. But Khalidov was the pressure fighter. He was the guy boring in. He was listed, I think, 6'2", 6'3", which is a couple of inches shorter than Kuzmin. But he was boring in, getting in close, and really walking Kuzmin down very, very effectively. With his footwork was good. I mean, this guy in bare knuckle makes you battle hardened. I mean, it's a very, very tough sport. I'm only a casual watcher of it, but it's a very, very tough sport. And this guy had the air of, this is a tough man, Murad Khalidov. And he was walking down Kuzmin, who, to his credit, even though he was on the back foot moving backwards, he was throwing lots of punches and he was catching Khalidov, but he wasn't hurting him. And Khalidov was pinging big right hands off Kuzmin's jaw. Kuzmin's actually got a good jaw. Khalidov's got a very good jaw. But you got the feeling that when Khalidov landed those right hands, they were shaking Kuzmin more than Kuzmin's work was shaking Khalidov. Now, I thought Khalidov won most of the first 4 rounds. I wasn't really scoring it, just maybe in my head, but I thought he was having his punches were having more effect, and I liked his game plan, which was to walk down Kuzmin. It seemed to be very effective, even though Kuzmin, like I say, was throwing a lot of punches and was landing, and at times was, not buzzing, but, rattling or bone shaking Khalidov. But I just felt that Khalidov was making Kuzmin fight at a pace he didn't like. Both orthodox fighters, by the way, not southpaws. In the 5th round, there seemed to be a swinging of the pendulum because Kuzmin, for the first time, looked like he'd buzzed Khalidov. And Khalidov was suddenly backed off and looked like he was huffing and puffing. I don't know if there was a body punch in there at some point. But Kuzmin really laid on the leather onto Khalidov, forced him back for the first time. Suddenly, Khalidov was on the ropes. And to be honest with you, by the end of the 5th round, Khalidov had battled back. I mean, both these guys have got big hearts. And then in the 6th round, Khalidov came out and actually, even though it was competitive, he seemed to have recomposed himself. Well, it was in the 7th, and to start with, in the 7th, again, Kuzmin was letting his hands go, having effect, but they started to swap punches more. Kuzmin has this, he's a very sort of upright fighter, and he's got a very porous defense, right, to the head anyway, And Khalidov was still able to land those big rights, but ironically, it was a left hook that unhinged Kuzmin. Suddenly, Kuzmin's going rubbery-legged. Khalidov smells blood, goes in, lets a barrage of punches go, ending with another big right hand, and puts Kuzmin flat on his back by the ropes near a corner. And the referee, without counting, instantly stops it. So, inactive for over 11 and a half years, Murad Khalidov knocks out Sergey Kuzmin, hands him his first inside the distance defeat. Where does he go from here, Khalidov? He's not the youngest of fellas, but this is a tough man, a real tough guy. And he's undefeated in 10, even though this is the first really competitive opponent he's had. For Kuzmin, difficult to come back now, knocking on a bit. Never really fulfilled his undoubted talent. I do think he beat Bakoli in that fight back in 2020, but just sort of trod water. I mean, he did get a victory back in 2021 over an undefeated fighter called Igor Macedo, which was good. He stopped him in 10, and you would think he would build on that. And he fought people like Richard Lartey, and who he knocked out in a round. And there's too much inactivity. There was no momentum to his career. And his career kind of fizzled out after those back-to-back defeats to Hunter and Bakoli. And it's a shame, because like when he fought Pricey back in 2018, he was being hailed as a good fighter. He got a 6-round TK over Jeremiah Carpensi as well. He fought Amir Mansour. I think that ended up as a no contest. But he seemed to have some momentum, and it just fizzled out, and his career fizzled out. It's quite sad, really, because I think he had some ability. But this guy, Khalidov, he picked the wrong guy to stand and swap punches with. Khalidov is a rock-hard man, a very, very tough man. So I don't know if you saw this fight, but like I say, go over at TalkSport Boxing, look at I think it was a live stream, and have a look at it and tell me what you think. But don't miss it, because it's a right old ding-dong battle. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the like button. And I'm going to say subscribe to the channel if you do. I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will catch you later. Bye for now.